afternoon. And today would be the Snild JGO Committee meeting. We have a guest this afternoon, which is the Office of Personnel Management. And before we begin the meeting this afternoon, I do want to recognize that we do have enough members for the committee to conduct the meeting this afternoon. We have a quorum under our SNIL rules, Rule 7, Section 5C, just for the record. And also, we have excused members, Representative John Paul Sablan and Representative Tina Sablan. And today, also assisting us for this meeting this afternoon is Council Joe Bermudez and LA Assistant Devin, who newly joined us, both houses, the Senate and the House. So thank you so much. I would like to call this meeting now to order. May I hear a motion to adopt the agenda this afternoon? It has been moved. Any second? And seconded. This agenda this afternoon is officially adopted. We are moving right along to section item number 4 under public comments. Anybody in the audience that wants to make a public comment for this afternoon's meeting may do so now. I do not see anybody in the audience, so we are officially closing the public comment period for the meeting this afternoon. Before we move on to item number 5 of the agenda, I do want to recognize the presence of Representative BJ Atto to my right. To my left is Representative Corina Magofnia, Representative Vicente Camacho, and Representative Denita Yangtimay. These are the members of the committee as well, so thank you very much. Item number 5, Office of Personnel Management. Thank you, Ms. Franny Salas, the Director of OPM, and your assistant for attending this afternoon's meeting regarding OPM matters. Before we open up the floor for Q&A, and before you have any statement for the committee, it's standard procedure in this committee that I chair that we take the oath of oath, so that anything we ask will go on record that is reported as the truth. So, LA, can you please administer the oath to Ms. Francis Torres Salas? Thank you.
Please stand up and raise your right hand. Ms. Frances Torres Salas, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salas, for that. The floor is now open for you to give your brief remark before the committee. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad that we have rescheduled this meeting from, I think it was last month. And so I'm here to answer to the best of my knowledge and answer any questions that you may have regarding our Office of Personnel Management. With me, for the record, I have Ms. Bernadita Sablan, who is our office manager. There are several chiefs that unfortunately have been affected by COVID, not necessarily themselves, but their family members, so they are out right now, although they were all asked to attend. One chief is in a training for Tyler Munis, and the rest are in quarantine. So hopefully everything goes well and they're not, have to stay out too long. But anyway, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salas. So we're going to move right down to item number 6 of the agenda, which is discussion with the committee members. So we'll open up the floor for any member to be recognized for any questions or clarifications to Ms. Salas, and including her assistant office manager, Ms. Bernie Sablan. And we'll normally go in a full circle before it gets to me. And anytime when I'm asking questions, I do allow the members also to just raise their hand, and I would recognize them for any further clarifications or questions. So members, it's open. Anybody? Recognize Representative Camacho. Rep, can you put your microphone on? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. and welcome. Um, I was reading the Centric report, and the portion I was, focusing on was the government workforce. On this one part here, where it says, on the flip side, however, the lack of soft skills such as reliability, time management, dependability, flexibility, and teamwork are all critical skills that are needed for a productive workforce. And on the bottom portion there again, it also says that areas that are priority is the employee health, both mental and physical, employee burnout caused by prolonged stress and excessive work hours needed to be addressed to curb employee discontentment. Now, I believe that if government employees, if they understand the policies, regulations, and rules that guide them in their daily work, that should reduce some stress. Um, but also, stress is not just work related. Um, it is also from home environment. They carry that forward. Um, so I kind of listed down three things that might possibly help. One of them is we need qualified managers. Qualified managers that have the skills and understand how an agency works. And it's very important that they practice that to their employees. And if they understand and actually educate their employees, let's say code of ethics, equal employment opportunities, sexual harassment, office politics, political intimidation, customer service functions and operations of an agency, dress code, and the rules of employment. I think um, that in itself would help out. Now, boredom is a big one. Um, from experience, 28 years in the Department of Defense, one of the reasons I stayed around because I did not sit in the same desk for the next 20 years. One of the programs we have is every 3 years, we have this rotation, reassignment, different managers, different work environment, just different. It kind of takes you away from that stressful environment that you were in for about 3 years. I think also lack of forward movement for employees. So all those things really, if we look at it very closely, those I believe would help. I don't want to be stuck in the same job forever. That's why being an elected official, I may want really to stay on for the next round. But if the people say, no way, you're done, we move on. So that was just kind of something I wanted to throw at you and look into that, especially the movement of the employee, not necessarily upwards, but put them somewhere else at their skill level just to change the environment. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Ms. Salas, you can respond to that.
Yes, thank you so much. I am so happy that you all read our citizen-centric report. Now, as I stated in here, we have to understand that when we hire individuals, the first thing that we look at are their minimum qualification requirements. Basically, that's what qualifies them to the position. But at the same time, I've realized that we need to employ people with the soft skills, dependability, reliability. Those are two of the most important things that I feel are also lacking. Or I should not say lacking, but needs to be improved upon. Yes, they're there because they have the education, they have the technical skills, but can they come to work every day? Can they follow our rules and regs of coming into work every day? And unfortunately, that's where we need the help. When we talk about, I think we touched a little bit about stress. Now, one of the things that I have seen rise coming from an OPM perspective Prior to becoming the director, I was a chief for employee relations. My section dealt a lot with grievances, EEO cases, adverse actions, disciplinary actions. And so it came to a point where I was wondering, why do we have so many disciplinary actions? Why are we going through a lot of adverse actions? There has to be I wanted to get to the root of the problem. Come to find out that a lot of our employees are stressed out from work. Is it because they are overworked? Don't they have enough time off? Is it more so of a family matter? And I guess in the past, I guess supervisors and managers didn't feel that they had the authority to sit down with the employee and ask, is there any way we can accommodate you? Is there a problem that you're going through? So we started to instill that in them, that you have that authority to ask these questions if you want your office to work more efficiently, productively, and also, are we fulfilling our goals and objectives, the mission of the department? Now, we saw a lot of high turnover. And the high turnover was because people just couldn't handle the daily stress. So my question to these departments, and I'll go back and the majority of the problems that we saw were in law enforcement. Now, so therefore I said, okay, so maybe we need to hire some counselors. Sure enough, they hired counselors. So as the years went on, it's like, okay, now we're still at a point where we're still seeing the problem. So are the counselors effective or not effective? I cannot answer that. I'm not involved in their counseling sessions, But as you all know, we are conducting an audit. We are in the process of fulfilling the mandate by the House to conclude an audit on corrections and DPS. And I'm hoping that we can get to the root of that problem, or at least find recommendations to fix it. And I'm happy that we are going through the audit. So again, our main focus in the government is, okay, but do they qualify for the position? Yes, they qualify, but are they dependable? Are they reliable? Are they responsible? So that's when I talk about the soft skills. So we're trying our best to instill these soft skills through our trainings. And I know Rep Camacho has been very concerned about the trainings that we are conducting, and we are finally back on track on our training calendars. As a matter of fact, we have training going on this month. And to address some of the topics that we are having are code of ethics. We got OPA to assist us in that. They are the experts in that subject matter, no? We have the sexual harassment, preventing sexual harassment. I believe even EEO, basic EEO, alcohol and drug. So we're getting back to normal, and we've had a setback because of COVID. So we're hoping that this trend will continue and we can fulfill our responsibility to do all the trainings that we need to do. Some employees, I cannot speak for all of them, but we have a better rapport, I could say, with the HR departments, the HR sections of the departments. And we've had specific sessions with the HR for them to conduct onboarding. That's where we're also lacking, is the onboarding process. Onboarding meaning, are the employees aware of their rights? Are the employees aware of their benefits? Normally, I would say in the past, it's like, okay, here's your job, here's your position description, so get to work. But there's also another part to all of this. And again, we are trying to get back on track to try to improve upon trainings. And also, let's not focus on the old trainings. We need to move up with the times. Let's not just, yes, customer service is important, but everyone should know that by now. I mean, if you've been sitting in a position for 20 years, you should know that customer service is part of the job. And so again, I thank you for bringing that up. But we're doing our best to get back on track with the trainings. There has been some setback because of COVID, but like I said, we're getting back on track. Thank
If I
you.
may just interject here, it's just so that we move the conversation around the table. I do appreciate that. Representative Camacho, is there any other follow-up on your question? Yes, go ahead, please.
Going back to undependability, do you think maybe culture, tradition has any factor into that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. Any other members that would like to ask a question from recognized Representative Magofnia?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to you, ladies. Thank you for coming in. So, also looking at your citizen-centric report, your report stated that your agency had a huge reduction in budget for fiscal year 2021, almost 50%. That's a huge cut. And so I can just imagine the financial constraints that your agency was faced with. And so with that said, is it the same for fiscal year 2022? Are you guys facing the same challenges?
At the moment, we're not. But back then, a staff of 18 was the norm. We were then down to 4. The chiefs, and Bernie.
Oh,
4. And we'd sit in the lunchroom at lunch and we'd joke about it and say, hey, you see this? You see this group? This is it for our Christmas party. This is it. But, with the injection of ARPA funding, we are back to the right level. Now, the concern I have is that's only because of ARPA.
Right.
What happens after that? But
so
yes, it was a challenge.
so the
Rep,
financial constraints was for the entire fiscal year in 2021, or just a portion of the fiscal year?
a portion.
A portion of it. And were there any significant impact to your operations because of the?
Oh, definitely. A lot of us were working extra hours just to get by with paperwork. We understand that, people still needed to get paid in a timely fashion. So we did our best to make sure that those documents, the request for personal actions, were reviewed and not reviewed in haste,
Right.
because we could easily make mistakes, but to make sure that the review was complete and that they were entered into the system for a timely payroll. Yes, I'll admit, of course, we were behind, but we got through it. And it just proves to me that I think if we set our minds to getting the task done, it can be done. But it's also so nice to have everyone back, because although we're still working, we are on our toes, believe it or not. ARPA funding has, again, injected a lot of funds. However, that means it has prompted additional hiring, additional announcements. And when we talk about announcements and that they're entry level, believe me when I say we can get more than 100 applicants per position. And that just tells me that there are people out there that need work, that are desperate to get a job. So again, and if we do have 100 applicants, we have to review every single one of them. We don't just, okay, let's just do 50 and sorry. No, every single applicant has to be rated, reviewed and rated. Okay.
I have a follow-up question. So on the subject of ARPA funds, we do know that there's an expiration to all of this, right? And so what is your agency's projections or plans going forward where we stand with everything,
Oh goodness. I've already discussed this with my chiefs. I've said, this is all wonderful. This is all wonderful. Money's in the economy. It's generating revenues, taxes, which gets back into the government, right? However, all I can say is that we are better prepared. OPM is better prepared in the event that we have to go through a furlough, heaven forbid. But it's the reality. And then I say furlough, but will it lead to a RIF, a reduction in force? And we've learned a lot through this past year where we had to get through the calculations of the retention points for the RIF. So we have the foundation. We have the foundation. We have the process. We have the procedures in place because we had to go through it. It's just that it just so happened austerity was lifted, ARPA funds were infused, and that was canceled. So again, I would not put my guard down because I tell you, the days go by so quickly. We're already in February. So, I don't know what else to say, but I think we're better prepared. We're not going to be, blindsided if come time.
One more, sorry. And thank you for clarifying that. I'm glad you brought up the subject of the RIF, right? Because there was a lot of confusion during the time when this was all happening. And like you said, thank God we didn't go through with it because there would be a lot of people out of jobs. But in going back to that, are there like specific guidelines as to how one is determined, or there seems to be some confusion whether it's longevity or the criticalness of their job description and stuff like that. Is that something that employees have access to it so that they can also understand? Because I think that's what creates a lot of the confusion and the frustration and everything that comes with that, Would you mind elaborating a little bit on that?
Yes, thank you. So there's one other aspect of this whole thing, and that is whether the position is essential or non-essential. And I say position, not the person. Position. And I think that's where a lot of the discontent was. But again, we had to learn quickly. And yes, I would say we do have the foundation to move forward if that time arises. We have procedures in writing, in black and white, per our regulation. But again, another factor that plays, that it's an important factor is essential. We need to determine essential versus non-essential. And the whole point of the furlough part was, how do you operate your office on a limited staff? Who can multitask? So right now, in OPM right now, everyone has to learn to multitask. You cannot say, I cannot be in the front because I don't know how to answer the phone or I don't know how to answer these questions. Well, no, everyone has to learn it. So we have a rotation that goes on. That, okay, yes, you're part of employee development, but you also need to be in classifications to learn that part. So we try to make it a point to have everyone learn a little bit of all the sections. We have 4 sections. So again, the multitasking part is crucial. And that's how you would determine that who's essential and non-essential. Not just because you've been there 20 years. Yes, absolutely, retention points matter. However, how about the operations? We have to look at a bigger picture. How do we continue to operate DPW and fulfill their mandate to the community with a limited staff, for example? No, I think a lot of people, and I may be corrected later on when I say this, but did we ever think that the solid waste people were essential or non-essential? I think in the beginning we thought they were non, but technically they are. You see where I'm coming from? So, yes. So the essential part and their longevity, yes. But there has to be a medium. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
Thank you, Representative Magofnia. Any other? Recognize Representative BJ Atto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Franny and Mr. Sabah, for joining us this afternoon, and officially congratulating you, Franny, for the position. Just, I guess, in line with Rep. Karina Magofnia's questioning, does OPM or the Civil Service Commission have, at the very least, a listing of what essential and non-essential employees are, should we have to get back to that period?
I want to say we do have a list, but I believe it needs to be updated. Back in, I can't recall the year, but we were about to go into a furlough. We had a committee, which I was not part of. So I'm trying to dig up those files because they did come up with a list of essential and non-essential. Yes, we can all say that law enforcement is essential, but there are others. So we need to update the list. I've identified the list, so we will update it in preparation, and just to even have, actually.
Yeah, no, I
You
think
know?
that's very important, right? Because I think over the years, the legislature had tried to dip their hands into something like that to create kind of mirroring the feds of what essential employees and non-essential employees were. And as soon as it started rolling, there was always a dead end, because you take like the maintenance individual, right? They consider them non-essential, but within 3 days, that person becomes very essential because of
Yes.
the sanitation reasons. No, so I think OPM needs to have that listing, and I think the Civil Service Commission should press on those
Yeah.
listings, because that should be the protection of OPM and the central government. And the other thing to ask you is, do you have the listings of the numbers of civil service employees compared to exempted service employees in the CNMI government?
I can get that information.
Can we get
to
that?
you.
Because I know that over the years,
Civil
we've always had a
service
bigger number of civil service employees that has transcended into more of exempted service employees because of salary stuff. And obviously that's very clear. That's one of the stressful things that line item departments go into, is because they've been working there for 15, 20 years. And then you have a new hire because of exempted service, they make twice as much.
Mhm.
Those are the additive stress to the departments and agencies like yourselves, and you guys have to stress over, because now they're competing with a contractual agreement between an individual and the head of the department, while the civil service employees have to abide by the civil service rules and regulations.
Yes,
Right. So
I can get that information.
please, and I believe that if we can get an update from OPM, and most especially the Civil Service Commission, on the listings, because we never know. I mean, we're hoping that our economy can recover. We're hoping that our tourism industry can come back to at least 45%, so we can actually afford to maintain these employees. And on top of that, there's a communication. Sorry, I just jumped ahead, but there's a March 30, 2021 communication, which is in addition to, in accordance to the ARPA funds, right? People were being hired back into positions, and they were given WGIs. And if the ARPA money runs out, are we going to be able to afford the WGIs that were given under ARPA? And in addition to that question, are all the WGIs been certified and provided to the civil service employees that have gotten their papers through the process?
Mhm.
I think that's very important, because I know that a lot of the members here, and I'm sure your office would get many calls, that they're still waiting on their WGI.
Yeah. I'd like to make one clarification on the WGI matter. Okay, so yes, when austerity was lifted in March 2021, we immediately went into processing all the WGIs that were owed to individuals, because we had never stopped processing the actual forms. So what we did was we sent them out to the departments, and we told them, we know this isn't going to be approved right now because we're in austerity. However, please make sure you do the performance eval, attach it, and bring it back to us so we have it on record. which was so helpful when austerity was lifted. All we had to do was take those out and just start distributing and say, okay, go finish routing it and then come back and we'll process. So we're pretty much done with those. We're done with those. I could say that all that were owed are pretty much already at the level where they should be. Even people that were promoted back in the day when we were in austerity and they could not get the salary, actual financial part, but yet they held the title, they also have been placed at the correct pay level and step. Now, we get a lot of calls because some employees who are were supposed to get WGIs, unfortunately were furloughed. So therefore, I can't process a WGI for an employee who was furloughed because the regulations state that they must have performed satisfactory performance for 52 weeks. So unfortunately, there was a period of time that they did not make the 52 weeks. But what I do tell the department is, well, moving forward now, let's make sure that they perform satisfactory and we get their WGI in. So with that, on top of the WGIs, some employees who were rated exceptional all the way down, there are, I think, 4 categories. If they got exceptional, they would also get a merit award. So those merit awards have also been processed. So, and that is because of ARPA funding, no? Sorry.
No, thank you for that, Franny. The other thing is I guess obviously the numbers of civil service employees and numbers of exempted service employees, that's important, right? Because a lot of it's also a creation of the legislature, right? So we want to try to avoid that and want to make sure that the strength of OPM and the Civil Service Commission comes back to life. I think it's very important that the Civil Service Commission and OPM has more authority when it comes to the employees, because at the end of the day, OPM always gets the blame, right? And the less action we have from this side, it's better, more productive on your side. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. And for some reason, right, over the years, they just jump into it and make these decisions. And that's fine. That's before our time, and we have to live with the decisions that were made then. But I think moving forward, one of the things that obviously the civil service has its rules and procedure. Do most departments and line item agency kind of mirror you guys' rules of procedure, or do they make it stricter? I hope they're not making it more lax, because they shouldn't be making anything more lax. Okay.
Under the executive branch, they do follow the rules and regs. Yes. The Civil Service Commission is responsible both for civil service regulations and accepted service regulations. So yes, they do follow.
Okay. What about the autonomous agencies? Because some autonomous agency employees actually still fall under OPM.
They don't. I would not know what type of regulations that they follow. However, we still accommodate and we still consider them part of the central government. And when I say that, I mean, for example, benefits. Let's just take sick leave bank laws, no? We apply that to the autonomous agencies if there is some kind of request for donation from an executive branch to autonomous. We still process that. But as far as their actual own regs, I'm not sure. I know that some have deviated a little bit, but that's nothing that we can control. And when I say that, I mean like PSS, CHC, for example.
Okay. I yield for now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Representative Atto. Let's move around the chamber here with other members. Recognize Representative Denita Yangtamay.
He took most of my questions, so I'll just, yeah. Okay, first of all, you hired members or employees under the ARPA, right? Right? Okay, so what will happen to these people when the money runs out? Have you been making plans as to what to do with these workers? Okay, that's one question. And what are you doing? Like
Okay.
projection.
Yes. So, when when a request for personal action comes in and we can see that is 100% federally funded or even partially federally ARPA funded, it's very clear which one is ARPA and which one is not. We have to ensure that both the department and the employee are aware that the funds are only available for a specific period of time. They are not placed on a civil service status. They are placed on what we call as a limited term appointment. Because we have to make it, they have to be aware that this is not a permanent position. And that's where we need to be careful. And we need to ensure that both the employee and the department are aware. Now, let's say time comes where that limited term appointment is expired. And if they feel the need for that employee to continue or that position to continue, they should plan ahead and migrate that account to a general or local account because there will be no ARPA funds. Now, maybe that's something we can stress to them, but it's very clear on the request for personal action and that it's only for a limited period of time. And we most of them, I would say 100% of them are for a year. So come September 30, 2022, depending on how much funding is available, that person may not continue if funding is not there. Now, that's totally the department's responsibility. OPM is there to protect the employee's status, but as a limited term appointee, that's very clear. Again, it's a limited term employment. And we can distinguish which one is ARPA and which one is not.
Thank you. I
Thank
have
you.
Another one, Chair.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, just because I chair the committee on cannabis, yeah. On your centric report, you also have this chart on drug testing, but I don't know what's the orange thing and or yellow. Is that orange, yellow, or yes? Can you please describe
Yes,
that? And
yes,
what
thank you.
what drugs are you checking?
So our regulations call for the testing of 5 different drugs: amphetamines, methamphetamines, cocaine, marijuana, and phencyclidine. So we call them the NIDA 5. NIDA 5 is the National Institute of Drug Administration. So we mirror our regs after the US regs. So we test for those 5. It's been a challenge, and I'm glad you brought this up. It's been a challenge because cannabis is now legal. However, employees need to understand that it's not legal for government employment. And I'm sorry, but if they choose to do that, then they might consider working for the private sector, maybe. But our rules have not changed, our regulations have not changed, and we don't plan to change because on the federal level, it's still illegal. Again, our regulations are mirrored after the federal laws. So the biggest testing that we do is pre-employment. And as you see in orange to the right, 853. For that period, we tested 853 employees. And we broke it down by the type of testing. There's random, there's mandatory because of there's a mandatory drug testing law for law enforcement. We also do that. Post-accident, It's minimal, but we still perform it because accidents do happen. Reasonable suspicion. That seems to be, I'm not going to say pronounced, but it happens. We have some individuals who have been tested for reasonable suspicion. Either someone saw them actually dealing drugs, actually had drugs in their possession, and so forth. So we do test that. And then also follow-up testing. We have individuals who have, relapsed, have tested positive, have gone through the counseling, have relapsed, and therefore we need to continue the testing every so often, depending on what their counselor or their substance abuse professional recommends. So I know I'm getting a little bit off the track, but we still have a problem with ICE. We still do. And then now it's even a little worse when now marijuana is legal. So, I mean, it's a personal choice, actually. It's a personal choice for these individuals. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
you.
Representative Yantimay. Any other follow-up questions before I begin my round of questions for OPM? Recognize Representative Camacho.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of add a little bit more to what I spoke of earlier. Traditional and cultural practices, in our cultures are key to who we are. So, some of the practices that we do, and this is where a lot of people get affected, is like funerals, for one, home care, just traditional family obligations, such as novena, lisadzo, our religious practices. Those are just some of the things. Have these tradition and cultural practices been addressed at all to possibly be able to integrate it into maybe the workforce policy or rules?
Wow, that's very interesting. I don't think it has ever been brought up, but as far as family sickness or family members' illness, there are still some protections that we offer under Family Medical Leave Act that is afforded, and employees are accommodated through that. But as far as the novena and the rosaries, unfortunately, it's not. No, they can take personal time off. That's allowed. We have compassionate leave also that allows for paid time off during a family member's passing. So there are a few benefits that incorporate our culture. So
Okay, thank you for that. I yield, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So, members, if you have any other follow-up questions that you want to ask OPM, go ahead and flag me so that I can now do my questions for OPM. Thank you, Ms. Franny. You provided a lot of information to the members this afternoon. I'm sure there's going to be much more question and interest in terms of what governs government employment and rights of the employees and things like that. So let me begin with you this afternoon. Do we have an updated employee handbook for the government employees?
we actually already have one ready to be published. It's just in its final stages of review. But we
Okay.
have updated it. Yes, we have a draft. Let's put it that way.
All right, so it is safe to say that when people are hired by the government, as we speak today, to date, that every person is given an employee handbook, which is what's current today before the what's being drafted is finalized, correct?
Yes, I also like to add that some departments actually take it upon themselves to have their own handbook. So I'm sure it's like, for example, they're pretty much the same, probably just a shorter version.
Okay,
But
so
yes.
if that is happening as we speak, considering that a lot of the government entities are falling under the umbrella of Civil Service Commission, and those employee handbooks are governed by OPM PSSR, I'm a little bit concerned about departments generating their own handbook And I wonder if OPM reviews those handbooks. Because if they're not being reviewed by OPM, then in the court of law, that particular handbook is not going to stand. I want to caution you on that. I want to bring that to your attention. I'm glad you mentioned it today, though, that it is very important that departments are not just freely organizing or creating their own handbooks, because perhaps not, they may have a subsection of their department like a little HR, but overall, again, the umbrella of PSSR is governed under the Civil Service Commission and under your office. So I will be a little bit concerned about those handbooks that are floating around out right now in departments that are being given to government employees that may not be necessarily addressing the full context of the laws that protects employees.
Right, and I agree with you. And also, I guess the bottom line here is the consistency. So
Yes, so-
consistency between what they're actually providing and what should come from
Right.
us. Yeah.
So you do have plans to maybe
Yes.
revisit on that
Yes,
particular
absolutely.
handbooks
Yeah.
and maybe do a recall? I would
Yeah.
highly recommend that.
Okay.
Further on many questions that I have. Are CUC employees grandfathered under the civil service regulations before the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation became a nonprofit organization or corporation? Or whatever their classification of an entity they are under the law right now?
I would have to check, but I'm gonna say no.
Okay,
I
if
don't know.
you can come back to us on that,
Yeah.
please. Okay, we need
CUC.
further clarification on that because
And so the question was, when did they become independent, or when did they remove themselves from the civil service?
well, I think
Commission?
the legal question I'm asking this afternoon is whether they were grandfathered before the current Commonwealth Utilities Corporation being incorporated, right? So prior to that, the old timers, power plant CUC employees, what was their status at that time period, and which particular employment regulations and laws are they falling under, and which regulations and laws are they being protected under?
Okay.
So that's the whole reason why I mentioned the word grandfathering.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I think we need to have that clarification. And to
Okay.
any other department that became autonomous within the government umbrella, we need to also know that, just so that we know exactly, so we can dissect which particular sectors within the entire umbrella of the government are covered under the civil service regulations.
Got it.
Now, we talk about you going and digging back on files. I'm curious to know what kind of filing system do you guys have currently as we speak? Whether you have a current system for records, or do you have to physically go out there and dig hard files for you to be able to open up cases that are being questioned?
Yes, we have to physically go to a file cabinet and obtain a file.
Oh, that's very alarming. Today's 2022. And so let me fold that into the next question, whether OPM has ever requested from the central government, from the legislature, to provide funding so that you guys can have some sort of an electronic filing system, so that in case anything happens, fire or natural disaster, that you still be able to access
Yeah,
your records for
Yes.
purposes of employment.
thank you for that. We have already identified OIT, Office of Information Technology under Department of Finance, to assist us in that matter. We already have sent out requests for quotations for a heavy-duty scanner, because it's unbelievable the amount of files we have. We still have files from back in the TT days. So, and I refuse to, of course, dump them. We need to keep them. And believe it or not, we still have people coming and asking us, oh, I need my dad or my mom's, file from such and such. And then we work hand in hand with prior service office, because they also have to verify or certify the documents that we're presenting. So yes, I mean, it's inundating the number of files we have, but we've already discussed this matter with the Department of Finance, and that they will be providing the server that will hold these thousands and thousands of documents.
Thank you. This is a huge concern.
Yeah.
It has to do with people's personal records that could, that is necessary for their employment calculation, for
Mhm.
whatever other, necessary information that they may need with respect to what affects them in their lifetime.
Senator, if I may, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. One more important part to this is that there's a new system that is going to be implemented. It's called the Tyler Munis program. And that will also force OPM and departments to start uploading this information, all employment documents into the system. So we are actually in training. We've been in training since, I would say, 4 or 5 months
Okay,
ago.
I think a lot of
And we
people are.
continue, yeah. So that's also part of the plan. But with the current files that we have on board right now are going to be done on a separate, I guess it's a separate project, to have those all scanned and uploaded to our server.
Okay, so where are these hard records being stored right now?
At our office.
At your office?
Yes,
And you are
I would love
located?
you guys to come and see our office. As a matter of fact,
We might be considered essential workers because it's probably dusty and unhealthy,
no,
right?
they're dusted every day.
Yeah, and I'm
Don't-
worried about that because
Oh,
of
no.
OPM's health to the
Yes,
employees. They're
yes.
probably in an environment that is not conducive to your, to health if those records are old and dusty and.
Yeah, no.
So it's within your building?
Yes, it's our
Air-conditioned
aircon is
room?
on 24/7, and we clean. Believe me.
And I
And
do also
we actually wear
know,
masks and
Yeah.
gloves.
but
when
I
we
also
handle-
know that I'm sure there's some records being stored in Hawaii.
I'm not aware of.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you this because I did look into a record for a benefit, and we had to, it's a prior service record.
Oh.
We had to go as far off as Hawaii to try to identify the record of a particular government employee that had a gap in service, and OPM could not locate that particular document for the employee. So you might want to look into that too, whether there's any stored information offsite from the CNMI with respect to government employee records. I could be wrong, but I doubt it.
Are you saying it's located in the medical?
Could be electronic
liaison
records,
office?
could be, yeah, prior service, right? You mentioned earlier that you do also work with prior service?
Yes, the prior
Okay,
service office
Right,
here.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned earlier about not letting your guard down, because we all know that the federal money is not permanent, and that there's a time period when that particular funding will be exhausted. And we should be worried, as we speak today, whether the CNMI would have enough money to retain the number of people that are currently employed by the CNMI government, which brings me into the data questions of your centric report.
Mhm.
And so, looking at your 2021 centric report, on the new accepted service employment contract, it states 332. Under renewal of accepted service employment contract is 470. So is it safe to say that for this fiscal year 2021, that you have a total of 802 individuals under the accepted service employment contract? Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Under your provisional employment extension, you have 123. So that is a consistent number today as we speak. Is that correct?
Okay. So these figures are for October 1st, 2022.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
If you have any change in the values of this particular report, can you please update the committee before we finalize our committee report?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Now, again, on the same fiscal year, you have new under accepted service appointment. And then it's interesting that you have accepted service appointment, you got accepted service employment contract as different categories.
Okay.
And then you also have under renewal for the same category of 403. Is it safe to say that this is 533? or is it 533 less because you have renewals of only 403?
Okay, I want to clarify. Accepted service appointments are appointments under the municipalities. Tinian Mayor's Office, Saipan Mayor's Office, Rhoda Mayor's Office.
So that's under the municipality.
Yeah, we term them as accepted service appointments,
Okay,
not
so-
accepted service employment contracts. They're separate.
I got you.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have that clarification in the next centric report? Is that something that we could see? These are two separate numbers on the report.
Yes, because
Mhm.
new accepted service appointments are just new appointees.
Mhm.
And then within the same fiscal year, we had 403 renewals,
Right.
new versus renewals.
And that's why I said, is it a 533 increase or is it 533 decrease? So it's 533 increase, right?
Increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now probationary appointment. Can you
Okay.
expound on that a little bit?
Yes, probationary appointments are individuals who, right off the bat, qualified for the position and did not have to go through the provisional appointment. Provisional appointment is only 90 days until such time they meet the eligibility requirement and is rated on the eligibility list. Now, so this means 64 employees right off the bat made the eligibility list and were automatically put on a probationary status.
So this
leading-
is provisional probationary status.
probationary, leading towards permanence, leading towards a permanent status after a year. So
So-
in a sense, you can say these probationary appointments are new employees, civil service, leading to be civil service.
So anybody falling within that particular category, probationary appointment is a civil service position, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on your limited term appointments, I also renewal and extension. I see a 48 difference.
Mhm.
Is that a 48 decrease or a
Increase.
48 increase?
Increase.
Increase?
Increase.
Okay. So 293 is the standing number.
Mhm.
Okay. Your temporary appointments, can you provide us the data on that, of what particular positions are those?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And also let us know, with the same number of positions, what happens to those temporary appointments, whether did they transition into a permanent position, or just temporary for whatever time period?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
On your conversions and change of status, I have questions on that.
Mhm.
You have, interesting that there's the same number of 73 for that, and lateral transfers are also 73. Are these two distinct, different categories?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Now, I am interested, I'm sure the committee is also interested in the conversions and change of status.
Okay.
Okay,
So this is where we lead into converting from probationary to civil service.
Okay, so
or-
that has a correlation to your probationary appointment of 64 above and 73 down here. Is that correct?
64. Not necessarily, because we are counting by RFP, the actual request for personal action that we processed. I know it's confusing, but because not all RFPAs come in all at the same time, they're all like, whenever it gets to our office, that's how we process.
Well, this is
So-
quite interesting because if we're looking at the data, then we're talking about 7,519. And if sometimes it's not, if data is not counted as unique count
Mhm.
as a result of whatever particular processing is going through, then that means the data is not accurate. So I just wanted to, maybe you can provide more clarification on that. If that is transitioning to permanent employment, change of status or conversions. So I see, in my opinion, I'm seeing a correlation between that number and the number above under probationary appointment that was subsequently turned into a permanent position under civil service, as earlier stated by you.
Hmm.
You can provide clarification on that?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then also for the lateral transfers, if that is a unique count
Yeah.
of individuals,
This is one individual moving from one department to another.
right, okay, for the same pay level.
Yes, absolutely. No change in salary or position title.
And these are permanent positions?
Yes.
Okay. And amendments, corrections, 266.
So this could probably be considered something as of maybe almost like a duplicate, but I included it because it was an actual document that we processed.
All right, so is that number 266 included in the 7519 at the bottom?
yeah.
So
It's
it's a
included.
duplicate, it's not a unique count then? When we talk about, when I use the word unique, we're trying to get a better perspective of how many exactly are employed by the CNMI government. I know that when the budget goes through, they have, full-time employees, a number of positions, so on. So logically and analytically, when we look at data, I would think that those numbers would match also with the budget.
Yeah, but this
This is activities.
yeah,
You're reporting
these
activities?
are activities. These are
You-
actual documents that we process.
Uh.
Because anytime there's a change with anyone's employment, there has to be a document to make that change.
Okay, so this is just purely activities you're reporting on.
Mhm.
All right. Can we just get like maybe some details too on what are those amendments and corrections are?
Mhm.
Thank you. Change of accounts. Again, 1,064 activities. NOPAs are processing through, right? That's how we're going to interpret this today.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason why it's quite high is because ARPA. We had to migrate some individuals to ARPA funding because there were no local funds. So again, anytime there's a change to an employee's,
Understood.
record, there has to be a document to
Now, what
initiate the
happens
change.
to, if that person was a civil service employee and because there's no funding as a result of a downturn in the revenue collections of the Commonwealth because of COVID, and because of that reason, we decide to transact change of accounts for this particular person to an ARPA account. ARPA money runs out. What happens to that individual?
I cannot answer that. The government will have to find the money. These are civil service employees, and I understand your concern, but that is the reality.
So we have 1,064 individuals that were processed as a change of account
It's
that
just
potentially could lose their jobs.
yes.
We want to go on
So-
record on that.
For example, as we stated earlier, our office, 18 people. But because there was no money and we were told we have to furlough, they were all gone. So how we got them back was through ARPA. So again, I have the same concerns that you all have, but I personally cannot answer that question.
I'm glad we're talking about this
Yes.
afternoon because ARPA money is not like how they do commercial on Skittles. It's falling out of the sky, right? It's not a. I want to kind of like lighten up a little bit because this is actually very concerning. It's not to be insensitive, but we are very concerned. We are very mindful of how the money will run dry, and the revenue collections are not there as it used to be before COVID. And 1,064 individuals is pretty heavy to swallow this afternoon, that potentially these families will lose their jobs. And we're not talking about one single person. We're talking about an entire household
Yes.
that will be affected. And
Also,
we should be worried.
yes, absolutely. I just want to make one comment. Of the 1,064, it's not, you cannot just say it's only civil service because it's only also accepted service contract
Understood.
employees. Yeah,
Understood.
just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Salary adjustments of 205. Briefly, what is that?
Salary adjustments, these include, like I said earlier, the individuals that were promoted back in the day when we were in austerity
Okay.
and had to be brought up to the level where they're supposed to be at. we consider that a salary adjustment.
So is there any correlation to that, to your promotions at the bottom that says 26?
No,
It's a different transaction too?
yes.
Okay. And reallocations and reclassifications of 113?
So
These are individuals that are frozen on the salary scale?
these are individuals who have been, I'm not going to say promoted, but reallocated to a higher pay level and step, which is only 2 steps. And
Okay.
that is because they're probably performing additional duties and responsibilities. They are good performers, they have good evaluations, and the need for that particular position is warranted or justified.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And that's from the department level?
Yes, ma'am.
And they have that budget within their department, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, just for closure on this particular question, there's no longer any outstanding within grade increase for prior employees of the government. I remember many years back, there's still some government employees that never received their WGI, that some of them are still alive today, and they're probably still waiting for their money.
Okay, back in 2017, I can't recall the public law, but there was a public law that passed in 2017. I know that for sure, where we did a mass payout. Or was that lump sum? No. I'm sorry.
You can get
There
back
was
to us
a
on that?
yeah, there was a mass payout of owed.
Go ahead,
I
Representative
can
DJ.
assist. There's a payout for the WGIs. I think the chair's concern here is the retirement portion. They didn't do the recomputation on their pension. The WGIs got paid out after the frozen step. I think
Mhm.
it's 1999 dash.
Mhm.
I forget exactly what the number is, but it was the directive that put a freeze on WGIs. And we actually had multiple legislations over the years after to give the WGIs, but the directive was still intact. So in 2017, we removed the directive, and it also states in the communication for WGI under the directive 20-21-004. It reflects that directive that was queued back in 2017, I believe, when we were getting the CGRTs, and we were able to pay the WGIs. I think the concern of those employees are the recomputation for their pension. And unfortunately, the settlement fund had taken over the retirement fund already. So whatever existing laws pre-settlement fund took into effect, anything prospectively, we couldn't take it into effect for their pensions recomputation.
So I
that's
think
a
that's a serious concern, because I do not believe that those particular liabilities of the government has been removed. And if I may ask OPM to please look into this and provide us some updated information of what are we looking at in terms of liabilities that are still outstanding out there for employees that are still owed by the central government, or for any autonomous agency that has to do with whether recomputation of their retirement income and subsequently transitioning over to the settlement fund calculation. We cannot discount the fact that those are still standing liabilities of the government. So I think it's the onus is on OPM to try to look into that and maybe make contact also with the settlement fund administrators and see what we can do in respect to updating the information to this committee. Go ahead.
And just to
Representative.
assist the OPM, I believe it's a little bit more difficult for the first and second senatorial district, because they didn't have the local law to cover the WGIs. Within the third senatorial district, there's, I believe it's Saipan Local Law 13-38 that address the WGIs to its extent. In addition to the retirees of the 90s under 7-31, 13-38 that had language in there that would make sure that the computation would marry through with the within grade increases, and those actually were funded under 13-38 Saipan local law. So I think a lot of those employees fall under that specific issue. For the third senatorial district, I can't give you any numbers in regards to the first and second senatorial district, but I can look into that and assist with you guys. But 13-38 definitely clears out the members from the third senatorial district under the settlement fund. No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I do not want to be removed on the furloughed employees also that were affected, and as a result when they were recalled back to work, that they missed out on the within grade increase and merit increase for that matter too. So any recommendation from OPM on how do we address that? I know that you spoke earlier about it being in the PSSR. What recommendation can you provide this committee this afternoon? You don't have to say it now, but if you want to think about it, I would appreciate you coming back on us. I am concerned about the number of employees that are furloughed and subsequently being recalled back as a result of the ARPA money being available, but they missed out on the opportunity of getting the WGI and unmerit increases, and how can we address that at the legislature? So please do get back to us on that recommendation. I do want to ask you also if there is a standing definition of what is considered an essential worker for the CNMI government. I do know that every time there is a shutdown or whatever it is that's going on in the government, that non-essential workers are sent home. And I think that as a result of our activities doing that prior years and today, as we speak, even on the last 2 weeks of shutdown because of COVID, those considered non-essential were sent home, and they were not working in the office. But I am more curious to know what is the standing definition today as we speak of what is a non-essential employee and what is an essential employee, because we have taken actions in prior years and to date, and we must have some kind of a definition on the books. And why I say that is because I'm going to move right into the question of the premium pay. I have done some review of the ARPA interim final rule, and clearly it states that recipients may provide, meaning the state grantee of the ARPA money, premium pay to eligible workers, generally those working in person in key economic sectors who are below a wage threshold or non-exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act overtime provisions. Or if the recipient submits justification that the premium pay is responsive to workers performing essential work. I believe OPM plays a key role in providing this particular data to the committee. I am curious to know if OPM was ever requested for its assistance to determine who amongst the entire population of the public sector employment is deserving of the premium pay. Were you requested assistance?
The only question I was asked, first of all, I want to say, we were not involved in producing any list. We were not asked or involved in producing a list. I was asked the question, which departments or which agencies should we remove from the list? Which, first of all, I don't know what list they were talking about. I said, if we're talking about executive branch, obviously you want to remove legislature and judiciary because it's a different branch of government.
Right.
And that's all that was asked of me.
Which department or which branch?
Yes.
You
I
were
said,
asked.
obviously,
Okay.
if you're asking me about executive branch, so anything that falls under executive branch, not judiciary and not legislature.
So you never provided any personnel listing of who are amongst the entire government executive branch employees are deserving of premium pay. Is
No,
that what
ma'am.
you're stating this
Yes.
afternoon?
Yes.
Thank you.
Nobody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we were not involved.
Thank you. And if I may ask for you to provide this committee a listing of all government employees under the executive branch who are exempted from the Fair Labor Standard Act overtime provisions.
Exempt,
I would like to get a head count of everybody.
exempt from FLSA.
Right. That's
Okay.
this particular language is coming out directly from the interim final rule of the ARPA Act with respect to premium pay. And if I may also state for the record that the final rule delivers more streamlined options to provide premium pay by broadening the share of eligible workers who can receive premium pay without a written justification while maintaining a focus on lower income and frontline workers performing essential work. Lower income. That's another data that I'd like to see from OPM. I understand the minimum wage is $7.25 as we speak today. But we also know that not a lot of the government employees are earning a substantial amount of income with respect to their salary. So what I want to do with this committee is to try to identify that listing from your office, your head count, so that we could focus our attention on who is well deserving of the premium pay and their participation with respect to COVID-19 safety measures that were implemented by the state as we speak today.
So clarification, if I may. First, exempt from FLSA, and as far as low income, can you give me a cutoff number? Can you give me
I
some?
can't give you a cutoff.
Are we
I would
talking?
maybe advise you to maybe go over to Commerce and get some kind of data information on what is considered that cutoff. If there's nothing in OPM that could correlate with the statistical information or any other official report that you could utilize as a baseline, pretty much. ARPA does not specifically identify the threshold in the interim final rule. So my advice is to kind of like reach out to those other government entities to maybe assist you in making a determination and even get the guidance of your Civil Service Commission, just so that we address the issue of premium pay, because we are getting a lot of complaints. And I'm glad that you went on record this afternoon that the only thing that you were requested is to, say which particular branch of government
Yeah.
to remove from the premium pay. And naturally, that's the perfect answer, is the judicial and legislative branch, because we are a separate branch of government. Thank you for that statement this afternoon. But we look forward for all the other additional information that we are requesting this afternoon, okay? I would also want to ask the question of, do you have the number of headcount members of the entire government? How many members are in the DC plan? If you don't have that this afternoon, you can provide to us later.
I will have to get that from
Sure.
finance. We don't deal with that part.
It's not indicated on the NOPA when they select the options to be a
Um,
member or not? Is that data not captured by OPM?
No.
Okay, so
Because
wherever
we
you
are
can source
all-
it from.
Because we are all now under Social Security. So, yeah, that would
Well, Social
fall
Security
under
actually by
finance.
law is required for every
Yes.
person to pay.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
the DC plan program is optional for government employees to participate in, and primarily is because some people want to build their own retirement income
Mhm.
extra from Social Security and whatever other annuity that they may have, and also to get the matching of, I think, 4% as we speak today from the CNMI government employment, if you do a contribution of 10% on every payroll.
Yeah. I can
So,
get
so that
from-
is necessary that we also take a look at that, because we do have an introduced Senate bill that proposes to create another retirement program.
Yes.
Okay, so I think data is very important that we get from OPM, and
Yeah.
please get back to us on that.
I'll get that from finance.
At the same time, on that particular data, I would like to know the percentage of contribution of employees that are submitting 10% of their payroll to get the employer match of 4% of that particular population. I also would like to have data from OPM regarding health and life insurance members, a percentage of that population to how many are getting their extra coverage for health and life insurance. And that would lead us into, dissecting the population of our employment, how many are actually outside of the affordable income, and they're leaning more on Medicaid. I think that's very important that we know that data. Additionally, if you could give us an age demographics information of the employment of the government sector, and also why that's important is because there's a huge confusion or misunderstanding of the difference between a supplemental security income and the actual annuity from Social Security, which is 40 quarters or 10 years of contribution of a person. And considering that we all contribute to FICA taxes, if you don't have enough 10 years or 40 quarters of contribution, you do not get the actual annuity from Social Security.
Right.
You're going to get the supplemental security income, which is less than whatever it is that you could potentially earn when you reach that full retirement age. I think all of these is very important data from OPM today as we speak that we could get from you, and also moving forward in terms of capturing the information so that government employees are well informed also of what particular investment vehicles they could go into to start planning out for their future. I know that many employees have withdrawn their contributions from the CNMI retirement fund program when it collapsed, and they're just starting over contribution with Social Security. So why age information is very important is because we want to see the population percentage, how many of the government employees will see their full retirement age but would not receive an actual retirement income, but they're going to be living on the supplemental security income, which is less than 500 a month. How are they going to survive? This is the importance of data, and we're only going to lean towards OPM because I trust that a lot of this information you can extract from your system. If not, then finance hopefully will assist you on it, and moving forward can also give you your system that you need to capture all your data information. Now, I'm going to move into the conversation of, we see a lot of requests from the executive branch about salary adjustments or increase for particular positions under exemption under 1 CMC, subsection 8250C. And if I may read that section, it says, if the governor certifies to the presiding officers of the legislature and the chairman of the Civil Service Commission, certifies to the legislature and the chairman of the Civil Service Commission that after a diligent effort, the Commonwealth is unable to recruit a professionally or technically qualified person to take an appointed position, he or she may waive the salary ceiling established by law for that position. I am curious to know the involvement of OPM in ensuring that we really vet it out in the entire field of the Commonwealth, whether we really do not have qualified individuals within our own market, but before we start giving other people this huge substantial increase of salary. Are you involved at all?
I would like to backtrack a little bit and let you know that when I first took on this position, there were several of our staff that were concerned about these salary adjustments and these hires under the umbrella of the governor, of the governor's office. So we requested for legal opinion on this matter. And the legal opinion came back and informed us that we have no say, basically, as to the hiring under the umbrella of the governor. So we basically process those. Although there may be times where we are not in agreement, but if we are being told that we have no say by our Attorney General, then we just move forward with the process. And believe me, I think we have gotten several requests to again explain that to us, because of course there's no contentment, but you know.
I understand your explanation this afternoon.
Yeah.
And it takes me to this conversation because you did state earlier that there is a lot of people looking for work. And I am sure that OPM has in their database qualified individuals, our residents of the Commonwealth, that could fulfill and fill some positions that are being vetted through or proffered through from the executive branch. And that's the reason why I wanted to ask the question whether OPM was ever even sourced for information of available individuals in the market. Because obviously, I don't see any diligent effort being conducted to open up the employment opportunity for those that are available in that community. And I thank you for sharing that with us this afternoon.
Yes, I want to make one clarification, that there are some offices under the umbrella of the governor that do actually advertise.
Understood.
And those that do not wish to advertise just basically request for a waiver. but I'm not going to say that 100% of their hires are just waived. They do announce.
All right. Now, how often does the DC plan administrator provide training or seminars to government employees that are members of the DC plan retirement program, employer-sponsored program? Is it quarterly, or even how often do they get statements? Does OPM participate in that? Do you, or does it is just individually driven by each government employee that is a member of the DC plan?
I think
They generate their own electronic record, or, I mean, where's OPM's role in this whole process of providing the,
basically OPM has no role when it comes to that. We are just basically provided a document for the employee's file.
okay, but in my experience throughout my lifetime of employment involvement, it's an employer-sponsored benefit, pretty much, right? And it's not mandatory for any government employee to become a member. However, it's an employer-sponsored program because the employer matches 4% of your 10% contribution. And I'm curious to know how, what kind of services are being provided to government employees besides renewal of membership,
Yeah.
like understanding what kind of mutual funds that they're buying, how far out is their performance on their investments, what is the return on investment for this particular year. I'm curious because government employees, like I said earlier, people need to plan out about their retirement income. Not everybody's going to stay on the workforce forever. All of us want to retire, right? And as we sit here today, we're counting the years when we reach that point in life of how much money are we going to generate when we reach retirement age, and can we sustain ourselves personally for our lifetime? So I just feel that I think, if OPM could maybe communicate with the ASC and get some services going for the government employees to maybe do a quarterly seminar so that they understand exactly what are their rights, if they can withdraw the money early, and what are the penalties if they do, things like that. I think this is very essential workforce development and information also for the government employees to make personal decisions that affects their life and their families. I would highly encourage OPM to
Yes.
please participate in that and, get more a frequent activity.
Yes.
But
Noted.
I'm sure you're going to appreciate to yourself
Yeah.
if you're a member.
Right. I think the last time we ever had a presentation was maybe 4 years ago. But I'll reach out to them.
Yeah, we don't want a government employee contributing every payroll, and then all of a sudden the market crashes and they lost all their portfolio.
Yes,
Now that'd be
yes.
too late.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's
Noted.
the point I'm trying to make.
Yes. Noted.
And not to stop at ASC, but to also maybe invite Social Security Administration and do a seminar for the government employees so that they can tell them where can you open up an electronic record online at ssa.gov, right?
Yep.
And do a seminar for the employees and say, you know what, you're at this point, you can find out your record, how many more years you need to work in order for you to gain this much money, da 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 da. Isn't that
Noted.
wonderful?
Yes.
Don't you want to know it yourself?
Yes.
I told you you're going to walk away today with great information. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be logging on tonight, creating your electronic record at ssa.gov. So you know where you stand. Members, if you have any, just get my attention. If none, I'm gonna try to ask my maybe two last questions here. Hazardous pay, where are we with that?
Hazardous pay. Hazardous pay was not part of the lifting of austerity. However, I am aware that there has been law for I believe 2 departments that grants them or allows them to pay hazardous pay. One is DPW's solid waste management office or division, And the second one was recently brought to my attention was for the ABTC law enforcement officers, specific in the law. I can't recall the law number, but hazardous pay has been processed for DPW, Saipan, and Rhoda. As a matter of fact, we have completed the bulk of them. Um, and we just believe we may have just cleared the ones for ABTC law enforcement. But even with those, we have a few concerns, but we will bring that to Commerce's attention.
I hope that the hazardous pay is including the workers that are working the landfill,
Yes.
because
Absolutely.
inhaling those
Yes.
contaminants and filth
Yep.
is definitely dangerous to the health.
Yes.
So I hope that those
That is
employees are
it.
considered also,
Yes.
and any other employee that are working in hazardous occupations. I'm sure you can search SOC, what is considered hazardous occupation, standard occupational classifications that's in the industry. So
Right.
um,
But may I,
Go
since
ahead.
I'm here, would you consider that for law enforcement personnel? They're out there in a hazardous situation. It's just something to, maybe plan or
what
think
does
about.
the
Firemen.
PSSR define right now with respect to who are considered hazardous
It doesn't
positions?
specify. It doesn't specify.
Okay.
So
Now,
you know,
PSSR, the regulations are constructed and organized by the Civil Service Commission,
Mhm.
right? So my question is, what is preventing them from correcting that and updating the language of the PSSR? Does it require legislation?
I'm gonna say yes because we're talking about money. Hazardous pay is money.
Understood,
And
but
so
I think we're talking about definitions also. So money is one thing, that's budgetary process. But definition-wise, with respect to the personnel service regulations, I think it's a responsibility of the governing body, which is the Civil Service Commission, working alongside Classification Division of OPM, to update their definitions of particular occupations and titles so that we put those individuals in those proper categories, and that any hazardous pay that will be paid out, that they are not left out like the furlough employees who were furloughed and now no longer able to receive the WGI, right? And the merit increase. So I would highly recommend for OPM to also engage conversation with your Civil Service Commission and get back to us on that, please.
okay.
Thank you so much. And my last question for the day is the veterans employment. Is there anything in the PSSR that covers the veterans employment? And what kind of preferences for employment are given to veterans?
We just recently, so going back to the regs, there is not anything in the regs at the moment, but we did respond and comment on Rep Camacho's bill. We are, for that bill, we have already actually made some adjustments to our rating system. And in a comparison with, which is not quite fair to compare what the US does and what we do, but we did make adjustments to our rating system and also to include spouses of veterans, which we were not considering. But we have. And I will also bring that to the attention of the commission to perhaps insert or amend our regs to include veterans' preference. But
Okay.
it has always been in our rating system to give those extra points. But we've actually upped the points
Okay,
because of that bill.
Yes, the point system is good, and it's also recognized by the federal entities, primarily the U.S. government, right? But there's other acts that I do want to bring to your attention today that you may want to consider when considering that this is HR related, and it does embrace the veterans employment sector. And normally, when they go out and serve the country, that any federal act or law supersedes any local, state, And primarily it's because to give that opportunity and protections for employment for our returning veterans in our community. So I want to bring to your attention the Veterans Recruitment Appointments. It's called VRA. You might want to look at that. Also, there is a section of, it talks about a 30% or more service-connected disability, right? So that's something also to consider when you're drafting your regulations with respect to employment preference for veterans. And also, there is a Schedule A authority for people with disabilities, though not specifically for veterans, but we understand that veterans do have disabilities. And that's another one that also OPM I would encourage to look at. And the last one will be the Veterans Employment Opportunity Act of 1998. It's called VOA, VEOA. That's another consideration that the Civil Service Commission and your office can consider looking at and incorporating into your regulations for priority of employment for veterans. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example under the WIA program. If a veteran walks into the door, this is what we call the target populations. If a veteran walks into the door for service under the WIA program, it's called priority of service. That veteran is given the priority of service beyond any other person within the targeted population, regardless if you're a food stamp recipient or you are a person of incarcerated parents. If you are a veteran, the federal program recognizes under federal law priority of service for veterans. So this is a reason why I'm bringing all of these to your attention so that you can consider all of these acts itself in the construction of the employment preference for veterans. And last but not least, I'm not sure whether you have already commented, but you might want to take a look in your office under House Bill 22-85 and also Senate Bill number 22-71. These are proposed, legislations currently as we speak. And I think OPM would be very much interested in looking at them and providing some comments to the legislature.
Yes, we sure did already.
Thank you. Wonderful. Members, I do not have any other questions. Anybody? A last round of questions before we end this meeting this afternoon. I know Ms. Franny Torres will be working hard to get us a lot of the data and information that we requested this afternoon before we complete our committee report. Members, nothing? Ms. Franny, do you have any last comments to the committee? None? Okay. That finishes our discussion with Ms. Franny and Ms. Sablon this afternoon. Members, I do not have any announcements for the committee other than when I decide to call another meeting with other entity that I want to do an oversight with, I will inform you. May I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting this afternoon? It has been moved and seconded. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you very much.